Sorry to have my back to you. Sorry to have my back to you. I sort of, yeah. Well, as we wait for Her Excellency Vjosa Osmani, the President of Kosovo, I thought maybe we could sort of just warm up a little bit. Congratulate you all for making it this far into the Munich Security Conference this year. It seems to be even more crazy than ever before and starting on Thursday, so thank you for being here. I'm looking at the title of our town hall, Nevertheless, She Persisted. And to be honest with you, my instinct is to say, of course she persisted. Like, why is it nevertheless? I mean, this is a fight for all of us. My name is Sanam Naragi Anderlini. I am the founder and CEO of the International Civil Society Action Network. We spearhead probably the largest global alliance of independent, locally rooted, women-led peace and security organizations around the world, now in 44 countries. Women who are at the forefront of dealing with violent extremism, conflict, authoritarianism, and really paving the way for innovative approaches to dealing with security from both from a feminist perspective, but often very much culturally rooted in their own contexts. I'm also the host of a podcast called If You Were in Charge. And what I'm trying to do there is to actually spotlight people who are really at the forefront of driving change on big issues. So if you want inspiration, listen to If You're in Charge. Season 2 is starting. I think our guest is she here? No, she's not here yet. So that's who I am. This panel on the global backlash to gender equality is kind of interesting in this context. It's 25 years since the adoption of Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security. Sometimes we talk about intergenerational issues on these issues and these things, and I was very young when I was involved in that, and now I'm slightly middle-aged and tired. Hi, how are you? Thank you for coming. I was just filling it. Airspace, come on and sit down. Perfect timing. So, it's 25 years since the adoption of Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security, which was a resolution that we took to the Security Council very deliberately with the message that given the complexity of security challenges and conflicts around the world back in 2000, the world system as we had it couldn't cope on their own, and that there were women on the ground in conflict zones who were actually doing the hard work of mediation, mitigation, conflict resolution, and peace building. That's 25 years ago. We're still having that same conversation, and it's going to be interesting with our guests. It's 30 years since the Beijing Platform for Action as well. And just to be clear about what do we mean by backlash on gender equality, I wanted to share with you what the UN Human Rights Council has issued. It says the term gender was originally conceptualized to explain and challenge systemic oppression of women. Following the adoption of the Beijing Declaration in 1995, it was considered as a key concept in international human rights. Now, transnational movements opposing gender ideology have gained ground, including many conservative religious, civil society, and state actors. The working group at the Human Rights Council has observed backlash against women's rights and the very concept of gender and gender equality in recent years. This backlash puts many of the hard-fought gains that women have achieved in jeopardy, particularly in the areas of sexuality and reproductive health, gender equality education, and gender-based violence. But I would say also in terms of our roles in peace and security. So that's the context of when we say backlash. And I'm going to start, I'm going to introduce our panel and then jump straight into the questions, and then hopefully a conversation with all of you. To my right, I have Her Excellency Vjosa Osmani, President of the Republic of Kosovo. To my left, I have Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, Senator in Nigeria, and part of the Women Parliamentarian Program in this at Munich. Opposite me, Sanna Marin, former Prime Minister of Finland, and now working with the Tony Blair Institute. And last but definitely not least, Haja Lahib, Commissioner for Preparedness, Crisis Management and Equality. That's a huge portfolio at the European Commission. Former Foreign Affairs Minister, and you have also been a journalist, so you actually work on these issues. So an amazing panel. For those of you who might be wondering why we don't have a gentleman amongst us in this conversation, I just want to say that the Speakers Bureau at MSC really tried hard to have one amongst us, and none of the men who were invited accepted. Maybe they had other priorities, but just FYI. So don't blame me for, oh, we've created a space and it's just women speaking. We did try very hard. So on that note, Your Excellency, global backlash on gender equality, the state of peace and security in the world, and yet you are president of a country that's experienced conflict where women were really rising and have been critical. How do you see the question of backlash, but also progress in your context?
Well, thank you. Great to be here, although quite discouraging to hear that none of the men that were invited accepted to be in this panel. Hopefully that can change in the years to come, and I'm sure that there are men that would want to be included, but we just need to find them. We have been working with some men champion in our women, peace and security priorities, so we will be working with you to change this. But perhaps starting with my own country, Kosovo is the proof of two opposing forces at play. One, it's a case where the brutality of a regime, the Milosevic regime, had made women its target, with about 20,000 women that were raped during the war in Kosovo because they used rape as a tool of war to achieve their hegemonic and genocidal intentions. And at the same time, on the other hand, it was the unbreakable spirit of women. Women who led the peaceful resistance for decades, led protests, and at the same time, women who then fought for our liberation, fought for our freedom. After the war, it was women that led peace-building efforts, and after the peace-building efforts came the state-building efforts. Every step of the way, from the peaceful resistance to the armed resistance to the peace-building process to the state-building process of Kosovo as a free, independent and sovereign country, women were at the helm, including leading peace negotiations with our northern neighbor. Now, it is a clear case that shows that women's place in peace and security is not courtesy. It's the cornerstone. It's not courtesy. It's the cornerstone to success, which is why Kosovo truly is a success story that we try to showcase when we talk to countries and to peacemakers around the world that are now going through conflict. That the more women are at the table, the more women are involved in peace negotiations, in peace processes, the quicker success comes, the quicker peace comes, but then the longer and more sustainable it is. This is not just me saying it, statistics prove it, and more importantly, the case of Kosovo proves it.
May I stop you there and just bring it to the Nigerian context?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because, Senator, in Nigeria, again, we see women at the forefront of battling the Boko Haram challenge, and incredibly strong women's movements. You're in the Senate. What is it like in terms of a backlash? You are there, but are you feeling a backlash? What does it look like in your context and in your life?
Thank you, Sana, and it's good to be here today. The gender backlash, in my own view, depicts the resilience of a woman in attaining political heights, as a political leader, or as a corporate leader, or in the society in various aspects. And as an African woman, a Nigerian at that, the first female senator from my state, I would say this backlash to me resonates with my political journey to become a senator today. I experienced, I would say, all the forms of what a gender backlash should be. It started with the fact that I was labeled a woman, as if it was criminal to be a woman in politics. Because over time, people got to know or to resonate with the idea that leaders are men. So in my place, because I was a woman, they were like, no, you shouldn't be here. And that was strengthened by the statement the erstwhile president made in Germany here, that the woman's role is the kitchen and the other room. If you remember, that sentence was quite popular a few years ago. So that was used against me. You shouldn't be in the polls. You should be in the kitchen and the other room, which means the bedroom. So I had to counter that. And then came the race part of it, which is because my mom is Ukrainian, my dad Nigerian. And then they went, you are not Nigerian enough. You are not black enough. So I had to face that hurdle again, to identify myself that even though I am 1% Nigerian, as long as I do hold the passport, I am Nigerian enough, I am human enough, I am woman enough. And then it came the idea, the backlash of where I should contest, because my husband is from another state. And then they went, you shouldn't contest in this state. Go to your husband's place. It was an identity of location. Where should I contest as a senator? After all that, I thought the worst had gone, and then I had my baby because I was pregnant. I was 7 months pregnant when I had to tour villages and communities. High risk, I was 43 years old then. And then in the middle of it, I woke up, I had my baby, he was just 3 months old. And then I woke up to the news that I was labeled as a sponsor of terrorism in Nigeria. Now, prior to that, there were two very, should I say, sad events that happened. There was a prison break that gulfed the lives of about 50 people, and hundreds of prisoners were let loose. And there was another incident called the Owo massacre, which happened whereby a church was bombed and 34 persons died. So it just came all over the news that I was responsible for sponsoring the terrorism activities. And it was the hashtag Arrest Natasha Now, trending all over social media. In a few days, that hashtag received over 200 million impressions, making me the most cyber-bullied personality in Africa. That was a report that was published by Human Angle, made in collaboration with the Code of Africa and Center for African Journalists, amongst others. Imagine having a 3-month-old baby. Trust me. For once, I knew what it meant to wish the grounds would open and swallow you. And in 2 days, my breast milk dried up. I was struggling to feed my baby, tried all sorts. That's another story. But what it is I have suffered this, what it means to face the gender backlash in real terms. It's totally different when you read stories or you watch movies. But participating in that and knowing that there is no help, sitting every day wishing to be arrested, are they going to come for me? What happens to my baby? Will I be separated? And all that happened just to stop me from contesting because I was extremely popular. Now, again, you would think that was the worst of it, but no, the guns came. The attacks came. I suffered 2 accidents. I had a fractured leg. I had a scar on my face. And then some of my supporters were killed. And then a day before the elections, because one thing about me, and I believe that resonates with most women, once we set our path on a journey, we do not stop, come what may. It's that resilience that drives us, because we know that whatever we're doing, we're pushing and creating a path for many other women that look up to us. And that was what I said, you know what, even if I was going to be incapacitated or with my last blood, I will contest this election. Thank God for the support of my husband, which is very important. But then a day before the worst of all happened, the governor of my state, who I was in the opposition, I'm still in the opposition, he got this construction company to dig massive gullies, cutting all the roads leading to my local government, which was my stronghold. 5 major roads, like very deep gullies that could swallow a vehicle. So what I did then, knowing that I was against time, the elections were the next day, there was no postponement of the election. It was me and my fate. I was on the phone with the security, calling on all the most senior police officers. And you know what, I'm sorry to say this, but typical of my beloved country, the ecosystem that is supposed to support a free and fair election tends to side with the power with the political party in force. So I had to work with the community, the women, the young children. Overnight, we used our hands and whatever possible to cover all these gullies so election materials could come to the polling units. And that was it. So that's one part of the story. But yes, I experienced the backlash personally, but I'm glad to say that my victory today, it is a testament to all women and the resilience we carry in our hearts.
Thank you. It's extraordinary. Because so often some of this discourse around equality is about, oh, it's the Western agenda. And then you hear what you're dealing with and how you're handling it. Sanna, you in Finland, you have been an icon not only to Finnish women, but women everywhere, actually, in terms of your role there. When you listen and you hear the story from Nigeria and from Kosovo in terms of what women have endured and how they have persisted, how does it resonate for you in terms of whether it's backlash, whether it's the fight forward, in terms of the advice that you would give to others going forward and your experience?
Well, first of all, unfortunately, the stories that we hear, they're not unprecedented. They are very common stories that we hear more and more everywhere in the world. And are we witnessing a backlash? Yes, we are. We are witnessing a backlash, and we have been witnessing it for a while now. And if I would predict, it will get a whole lot worse in the upcoming years, unfortunately. We are now discussing everywhere in the world, and there are situations in Afghanistan, in Yemen, in Kosovo, in Nigeria, in all places and corners of the world, also in the Western world, where we are discussing once again health, reproductive rights of women and girls, right to safe abortion, right to participate, right to raise your voices also in the Western world. So I see a backlash, and it's going to get a lot worse, I presume. And this is, of course, unfortunate, but it's the reality. And when I discuss about these issues with my friends, normal women from all spectrum of the society, they feel the worry. And they are very, very worried right now because they see what is happening everywhere. And they see what is happening also in our societies, what is happening online when they participate in discussion, how they are attacked. And these are not politicians, these are ordinary women just trying to participate in the discussion. They are attacked, silenced, there are this mass gatherings of people attacking individual citizens, and the aim is always the same. Repress women, silence women, don't let women to participate in societal work. And you use all kinds of tools. Of course, the tools that we have seen in Kosovo and elsewhere, those are the worst kinds, sexual violence, trying to make sure that these are the tools that will really silence the societies and communities and women, but there are also other tools that are used as we speak. So there is a big backlash, and I think the only way to fight it is to really fight it. So we shouldn't be silent, and we shouldn't wait for something happen outside of our discussion, but we should really act on it. And if I would put it in a broader picture, we see today here in the audience there are a lot of empty seats. And why is that? And why is it so that discussions concerning geopolitics, of course very important, are always full, these rooms? But when we are talking about gender equality and women's and girls' rights, there are empty seats. And some men, but not many. Most of the audience here are women. So we are not seeing this issue as a cornerstone issue, like Osmani said. We are seeing this issue as a slice of a discussion, but actually it's connected to the broader picture. And when we are seeing this geopolitical turbulence or entering to this world where there are, once again, wars everywhere breaking, more conflicts and more disturbance within societies, I think there is a link. Because it always starts in a way where you depress women and girls, minority groups, opposition, journalists, and then you end up in this spiral where societies end up in this authoritarian way of thinking and mindset. And we have seen this in Russia, and we are unfortunately seeing this also within the Western world. I think there is a similarities that is happening right now everywhere, also in European countries and in US as well, repressing women and girls and their rights and just basic human rights and questioning the rules that we have been building together.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Commissioner, you're dealing with this in the context of the EU, but also looking outward. I have here a quote from my Instagram for some reason, because it listens to me, that I took a picture of, because it says, "You're getting closer. That's why it's getting tough." As if in the last 20 years, when we started this work, you know, first it was interesting, then it was, well, let's be nice to the ladies. And then as we start to actually make a difference and be in the positions of power, and not to be in the positions of power just to be part of the status quo, but to be transformative, that's when the backlash comes. And one of the things that, again, as a young woman, when I was involved in this agenda of women, peace and security, we were not fighting to say, we want equal opportunity to send our girls and boys to go to war and fight and die and kill. It was transformative equality to say, we want peace so that neither our boys nor our girls have to go to war and experience the horrors of war. And yet here we are now, and the conversation on this agenda of women, peace and security, on one hand has become, yes, women are necessary because the army needs them. It's literally, you know, boots on the ground kind of thing. And somehow peace is being perceived as a weak issue. But when we look at Europe in terms of social cohesion, when we look at the borders, whether it's, you were in Syria recently, the Israel-Palestine issue, people on the ground, as you mentioned, where there is war, it is women who've kept societies together. What do we do now? I mean, Syria is at a pivotal point. The EU has supported a lot of the work that's going on. This is the moment to make sure that Syrian women are integral, or in the case of Israel-Palestine, we have Women Wage Peace is in the room, Women of the Sun. I mean, they're there and they have answers. Can we get the EU to shift and actually implement? Is this some challenge that you're facing or others in your system are facing?
Just to jump off on what you just said, you know, the fact that I'm still the first commissioner that's been to Syria. It was a strong message to send a woman and to send the commissioner responsible for equality. And so my main message was, we need to have a Syria that embraces its diversity and especially half part of its own humanity. It means women. And I met immediately after my meeting, my long meeting with Al-Shara, I met the civil society and women. And I was very impressed. You know, I got a lot of energy of my trip there because I met women who decided, who choose to go back in Syria despite all the uncertainties that are still there, despite the war in the north, despite the lack of everything, to go back, to leave Western countries and to be sure to be part of the future. And so it means that the power is there, and we are there to support them also. And we have a full of examples through the history. Let me, you know, just quote 2 examples, very concrete one. In 2011, 2 women trained by UN women participate in negotiation, peace negotiation in Philippines with the Moro Liberation Front. They succeed to impose peace. And more recently, in 2023, I have the name here. I would like to quote her because she's an amazing woman. She imposed, Petronil, what's her name? Because it's important to quote her. Yes, it's Petronil Vjosa. She won the Women Building Peace Award in 2023, so very recently, because she succeeded to impose peace also in part of DRC. So it means that exactly as you said, Excellency, when you put women around the table, when there is a negotiating peace, they are the ones who succeed, you know, to reach an agreement. So we need to have them on board, and I'm convinced. I want to stay positive that indeed it's because we are near, we are just close, you know, and this is very strange because we see a lot of disparity. You know, in European Union today, the European Parliament is also not as balanced as it was during the previous mandate. The Commission as well. But at the top, you still have a woman as a president, a woman as HRVP, and a woman president for the European Parliament. So I'm staying positive, and I would like to pay tribute. I seize this occasion to pay tribute to our president, Ursula von der Leyen. She was the one requesting to the member state, proposing two, candidate for commissioner, a man and a woman, and at the end, as she received only men, she decided to, be more vocal and to say, now I need women. Otherwise, maybe I was not there. So it shows that when we want, I'm sure we are close to obtain to this equality. And it's also in our own interest, because I try also in my advocacy to be very objective with figures. Every year, inequality in the labor market has a cost. It's 370 billion per year. In the whole European Union, the fact that we don't take all the skills on board. And violence against women has also a cost. It's 290 billion. And we all pay the cost of this, injustice and inequality.
Thank you. We have 20 minutes. I'm going to open the floor for about 15 minutes and then come back. Would you like to add something? Because I cut you off.
No, it's just you reminded me now when 3 out of the top 4 positions in the EU now were proposed for women with Ursula, Kaya, and Roberta. Some of the men leaders from the member states started complaining for the lack of gender equality. Imagine, after decades of the existence of the European Union, when for so many mandates it was only men that had these positions, now that there were 3 out of 4 that are now led by women, they were complaining for the lack of gender equality. So it just reminded me of that. But I'd rather leave space for questions, and then maybe I can include some of the issues that Sana also mentioned.
Thank you. Yes, please put your hand up. Mike is coming. Introduce yourself and keep it short so that we can go around. I'll collect 2 or 3 questions and then come back.
Yes, thank you. My name is Stanela Shkriyelj. I'm an activist and a former member of parliament from North Macedonia. I think it's great that we have this panel here, as it should be at the Mynih Security Conference, because I think that really we should start looking more this question of gender backlash as a security issue. Because we have to be aware that we are not dealing with, the old-fashioned anti-feminism and people that are just thinking that women should not sit on the table. But this is actually anti-democracy movement. I think these topics like gender equality, LGBTI rights is used, as a topic that people are sensitive to create the politics of fear and the moral panic. But actually, it's to, as you mentioned, it's to create new authoritarian regimes. So we have to be aware who is financing and organizing this anti-gender movement. And I do think that this question actually is a geopolitical question, because last year we had elections all over. One of the main topics was actually gender. So that we just need to organize much better, even to maybe create unusual coalitions, because we are dealing with really new neoconservative, even neo-fascist ideas. So just to be aware that, yeah.
Thank you very much, and we'll come back to that. Anyone else? Any questions? Or was it? Oh, yes, go ahead. I hate having my back to you, sorry.
My name is Carrie Oderman. I'm a political scientist, and I help people understand politics on social media. To talk about security is important, but there's a lot of overlap between how women are treated and some of the gray zone activities that we're experiencing now in the Baltic Sea, things you can't quite put your finger on, but it's not okay. And I'd like to hear you talk about your experiences as women and how you can identify things that maybe others can't that quickly.
Thank you. And I'll take this one. Yeah, sure.
Thanks. A wonderful group of formidable women. I'm a member of parliament in South Africa, and we've got one of the most progressive constitutions in the world that we are very proud of. We had an election last year, and for the first time since 1994, we have seen a decline in the number of women who occupy seats in the South African Parliament. And it's because women are not stepping up and getting involved in politics. And I think that this is directly connected to campaigns to disincentivize and discourage women's active political participation. So it's becoming harder for those of us in the arena to continue to hold the line. We're also seeing in some of the West, women's rights being gradually eroded under the auspices of women's rights being defended. Can you please talk about how we can work together as women and political leaders to encourage younger women to start getting involved? Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for all of that. I just wanted to give some context. I'm Iranian by background, and one of the things that we saw in 1979 was that the regime that came into power, its core identity, I mean, if the imposition of the hijab and the oppression of women as second-class citizens didn't exist, the regime would just be another dictatorship. I mean, it's just, so there's a kind of an overlap that we see. And then living in America, what I noticed was that, the extreme forces there are coming, and they're putting the focus on our bodies, right? So there's a tendency, as you said, these authoritarian and these anti-democratic movements to attack women and almost like force us to be concerned about what we're wearing on our heads and our eyes down here, as opposed to focusing on the big peace and security issues and the shaping. And these things are interconnected. And yet often the men around us either don't get it or they don't think it's relevant. But I think they're deeply interconnected. And it's not surprising that one of the first people to stand up and speak openly to the new administration was the bishop Bishop Bood in the National Cathedral. So we see this, but as you say, people are disincentivized, people are attacked. How do we give courage? How do we say, you've got us, this is the moment to stand up and speak out?
Well, firstly, I would absolutely agree with what was said, because authoritarians, dictators, and political opportunists, they attack women's rights because they see empowered women as a threat to their control over the society at large, not just their control over women, but their control over the entire society. And because they see women's inclusion as one of the most empowering factors towards a democracy. So in fact, attacking women is an attack on democracy. And I couldn't agree more with what was said by Sana and our colleague from North Macedonia. This is not some woke agenda. This is geopolitical priority in itself. So this is geopolitics. It's another thing that many people don't understand it. But when talking about women's inclusion and leadership in peace and security, peace is geopolitics. Security is geopolitics. Democracy is geopolitics. Prosperity is impossible without the prior three. How can you have economic development if you don't have peace, if you don't have stability? These are preconditions to prosperity, economic development, and investment projects. And when women are not at the negotiation table, when women are not at the decision-making table, you can have neither. Therefore, you also lose on economy. So it's not the woke agenda. It's not just diversity. It's about us having our merited position at the table. It's because we worked hard for. It's because we belong there through our hard work. It's not a present that someone is giving to us. We belong there through our hard work. And by denying us our, not just God-given, but also our meritocracy, they are leaving the entire society without its, achieved potential. Even from an economic aspect, it's a stupid thing to do. Leaving half of your population outside of your economic potential, it's not good for your economy. Therefore, it's not good for the society as a whole. So men and women, boys and girls alike, lose from having this, from having equality and from having inclusion. So in that sense, it's really crucial that we make these points so that they don't see it just as a nice, play, but it's something that is crucial for the success of societies. Now, getting back to the point of how do we encourage young women. When I started as a very young woman, social media didn't really exist. Nevertheless, the old dinosaurs, as I call them, in political parties were there to discourage you every single day from being there and from having a voice and from just having the courage to speak up. You need to persist. You need to persist because, I've had thousands of times when I thought I'd like giving up. Every single time that I thought like giving up. I thought of the little girls who are watching and hoping that I don't. It's not just about us. And the women that came before us, they removed so many stones and so many hurdles from our way. We need to make sure that our daughters, the little girls who come after us, have it easier than us. Because we had to go through hell. We need to make sure that they don't. And I don't see a bigger cause than that. And we need to make sure that the young women understand it's going to be hard. Oftentimes, I don't speak about my hurdles because I don't want to discourage them. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a thorny road. We shouldn't paint a rosy picture, but at the same time, they need to know they can do it. We could do it. It was much harder for us. They can do it too. And I think the more we talk to them from an early age, the more we can enhance in them the self-confidence that they need, but also the trust in the bigger cause. It's like we need to look at the end of the light at the end of the tunnel rather than just the hurdles that are in front of us.
Does anybody else want to answer? Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yes. Yeah, everybody's, exactly.
Everybody wants to
I should say
participate.
this. I think the most important thing is to keep the conversations going. Like here, keep the advocacy burning. We identify an issue, we can't stay silent. We have to keep fighting. Women have fought over the years, over the decades, for many things, for the right to vote, for the right to be seen. So, in addition to keeping the conversations going, I think it's also important to project accountability. Yeah. It is very wrong to have people commit atrocities against another, and then these people are known. They are known. And then there's just nothing that can be done. I recall the EU observers have always been part of every election in Nigeria, and I believe in Africa. And they have interfaced with me. And at the end of it, I ask them, so what next? And they tell me, that's the EU, amongst others, they say, yeah, we just observe, but we cannot enforce the government to do otherwise. So I say, you watch me being attacked. You watch my supporters being killed. You watch me being shot. And all you tell me is, we observe. So I think the international, as much as they say politics is local, I know it's my decision to venture into politics, but there are certain anchors, like the international anchors, the regional anchors, the women bodies around the world. They should devise a means whereby they can help and reach and support those of us who are playing the part, who are on the pitch, who are right in the war front. Because in some countries, elections are war, especially in Nigeria for a woman. There are just 109 senators, but only 4 female senators. That's 105 men, and this is an all-time low. Congratulations, South Africa, Rwanda, other countries are doing well in Africa, but Nigeria, it seems the masculinity just takes the best of us. So in summary, let's keep the conversations going. Let's fire up the advocacy. Let us ensure accountability. Everybody should be held accountable. And on the softer side, we need the men. This, as much as we call the gender backlash wrong, we need men to understand that for every woman you support, you are supporting your wife, you're encouraging your daughter, you are loving your mother's struggles. It's everyone together, shaping our narratives. And lastly, wherever we have gender quotas, let us ensure that the government does enforce these gender quotas. Wherever there are anti-harassment laws, let us ensure that these anti-harassment laws are enforced. And let us not be afraid to speak boldly against the wrongs, however they want to silence us. The cultural and regional, and the cultural and religious backlashes are also real. I didn't want to mention that, but when you talked about the enforcements of certain things, yeah. In Africa, example, there are certain cultures that feel women should not be leaders. And it also goes into religion. Maybe sometimes the misinterpretation of the religious doctrines are also wrong. So, yeah.
Can I just, and I'm going to come to, so you mentioned accountability. And international accountability. Now, again, when we bring it to the WPS, the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, 25 years, 10 Security Council resolutions, over 100 countries with national action plans. In the United States, we have the Women, Peace and Security Act of 2017, signed by President Trump in his first term. And yet, Afghan women were sold at the negotiating tables by our own diplomats, and there's no accountability. So what do we do? If you were in charge now and going forward, how would you handle that problem of there are commitments, we have our part to play because they are playing their part in the countries that they're what would you do, Sana, if you were in charge now of the world?
I don't think we have enough time in this panel to discuss how we should really change the world. So I will go to the question, how can we encourage young girls and women to participate? I think the key here is to safeguard them. We need to make sure they are safe. Now they are not feeling safe. They are not feeling safe to raise their voices. They are not feeling safe to participate. They are feeling this violent threat, whether it is physical or online, and they're feeling it. And we are saying to the young girls, I've been asked so many times, what do I say young girls and women to participate and encourage them? And the reality is, I think about their safety, and I'm thinking really hard, do I want to encourage them? Now, we need to safeguard them, and we need to make sure that they are safe. So I would like to ask the Commissioner, what can we do together, especially in the digital world, where women are harassed and violently attacked every single day? When I look at social media apps today, it's amazing what has happened just over 5 years, or just over within 1 year. The content that these platforms are now actually feeding us, it's violent, it's sexualized, and it's something that we don't want to see, but still these platforms are feeding this content to us. And I want to ask the question, why is that? Somebody wants us to be afraid, somebody wants us to be silenced, somebody wants to make sure that we don't participate. So what can we do together as EU Commission and as European Union?
And just to add to that, just because you are the Commissioner of everything to do with equality. But to add to that, because the other side of the problem is that we also have a crisis with our boys and with questions of role models and who they're listening to. And I'm not even going to name them because I don't want to give publicity, but there are some pretty nasty characters out in the social media world, in the podcast world, that are fueling this agenda. And when you think about the other side of it, where are the good role models? Where are I've done research in 15 countries. I ask young men, who are the good guys? And they look at me blankly. So I'm just wondering.
I just want to react of one thing that has been said. You know, you just mentioned that when you help a woman, you help your sister, your mother, your daughter, but it's not correct. You help your son also. Don't forget that you help the future, by the way. And this is very important because it's linked with the role model. We need to have boys on board. We need to have them. And when it comes to role model, I have to say that I was very alone, isolated during all my life. You know, I'm from an Nigerian background, born in Belgium with in a Muslim, lost between two men, my big brother and my youngest brother. So, and I'm the only one who chose to go to university, who chose, you know, to launch my a career in journalism. I was the first news anchor in Belgium with migrant background and so on. I became also, I discovered that the first POC in the Commission. What is POC? I discovered this word is person of color. Yes. This is a person, I'm the person of color, the first one of the Commission. So this is, you know, but it is maybe groundbreaking, it's sexy to say that, but it was a lot of loneliness, solitude, and hesitation from my side. And I remember that my little sisters and also close friends to me told me, Aja, do it for us, please. Do it for us. We need you to do this because you are so close. But I can assure you that when we said just before, I was so close, but I was so close to be, you know, to go back because I was really afraid. And even the press was attacking me. I was also a victim of cyberbullying and so on. But when it comes to talk, I agree, we need to keep the talk, but we need to walk the talk as well. And for that, we have made groundbreaking progress very recently in the previous mandate with 5 very important directives. And one of them, European directive, is directive for combating violence against women. It includes cyberbullying, it includes violence online, which is as violent as physical violence. And so we need to implement it now. We have 2 years, and you can count on me to transform this written paper on reality on the ground before the end of my mandate.
Thank you. We are at time. I want to thank you all for the conversation. And maybe next year at MSC, we can have a panel on where are the good guys and have that conversation, maybe on the main stage. But you know, because it is, apart from thinking about the geopolitics, if half of your country is now being bricked up in their houses, how can you possibly say there's peace? How can you possibly say there's security, let alone democracy? So on that note, thank you very much, and hope to see you all next year, and we will carry on these conversations and fight the fight, and just to know nobody's alone. We all have each other. So thanks a lot. Bye-bye.